Hello, I'm Joel Blackford with Bethesda Sabbath Fellowship. We normally meet every Sabbath, not for the last year. My landlord called us up last Friday, so we may meet again. Call first, 612-315-6778. But it looks like we'll be meeting again very shortly here. And we'll be discussing, the Bible during the day and then eschatology at night. And you'll have a chance to be able to ask me questions and meet, which would be exciting. So we study the philosophy of eschatology, what you need to know, your reality, our existence. We try not to be disparate in our thinking. We're Beth Hesed Sabbath Fellowship. Today's lesson is on the third seal. Did it begin in 2012? Can I prove it? Can I give you any evidence? Well, I can give you evidence that the world is starting to notice that things are changing. Now, this is John Kerry, and they do this all the time. These leaders jump out and say, oh, the world's going to end in 10 years. Now, we don't predict the end of the world as Bible believers, but they do all the time. And they use it to get money from you. And so, they're saying, well, the United States is the number 2 polluter behind China. China is a big number 1 for pollution. Okay. And then India does pollute more than we do, but that's how they rate things. It doesn't matter. It's CBS. I don't even watch American news anymore. So, this is John Kerry saying it's the end of the world. And this is the UN saying these are things that they're risks, global risks that could end the world. Accidental war, anarchic uprising, brain-machine interface exploited, collapse of an established democracy, geomagnetic disruption. We'll talk about that today. Gene editing for human enhancement. Okay, sure. Neurochemical control. Permafrost melt releases ancient microorganisms. Interesting. Okay. Deployment of small-scale nuclear weapons. Well, that should be way up higher. That's accidental war. So what I'm arguing, as always, my agenda is to prove that the 7 seals of Revelation are the birth pangs from Matthew 24. So when he broke the third seal, that's what we're discussing today, I heard the living being say, the third one, go. It's actually bow, it's more come. And I looked, and there in front of me was a black horse, and its rider in its hand had a pair of scales. When I heard what sounded like a voice from among the 4 living beings say, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages, 6 pounds of barley for the same price, but don't damage the oil or the wine. And that's from David H. Stern. And then his commentary is on the right-hand side. The rich are cushioned by their wealth and from the effects of economic inequity, okay, and scarcity. But the poor, who must pay a day's wages, literally a denarius, from Matthew 22, for starvation rations, are brusquely ordered not to meddle with or damage the olive oil or the wine, now luxuries far beyond their means. So according to Rabbi Yechiel Lichtenstein, weighing the bread is a sign of a curse. According to Leviticus 26:26, they shall dole out your bread by weight, and you shall eat, but you will not be satisfied. So Leviticus 26 has the curses, so does Deuteronomy 28. And so it's interesting that when you're in the curse mode, it's measured out by weight, and the bread is. And so just keep that in mind. That seems to be going on right now, and we're going into famines and other issues. So we'll show you the cases today. As always, my agenda is to prove that these seals that are listed in part here are listed in Matthew 24, and they are the birth pangs, trying to link those two together. These happen to be the 4th seal, but we're going to go through the 3rd seal today. So, as always, I try not to twist the Bible, try to give you real prophecy from then and now, and not give you fake news. It's the philosophy of the end of days. This is from Richard Rittenbach about the 3rd seal. It's a picture of scarcity of grain during a time when olive oil and wine are abundant. So if you're wealthy, I mean, the best wines and oils are available. In fact, I just placed an order last week for oil, and I'm not wealthy, but compared to the rest of the world, all Americans are wealthy. So the wines and the oils are abundant right now. They actually are. The grain must be measured very carefully. It's sold about 12 times its normal price. At the same time, growers are commanded not to reduce the production of oil and wine, items which most would consider to be luxuries. It seems that the common folk would spend all their living on grain to fend off starvation, have nothing left over for the finer things, while the rich would continue to live comfortably and make money off inflated grain prices. The 3rd seal describes scarcity in the midst of prosperity, the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. Do you see that going on right now? Tesla is going through the roof. Apple is going through the roof. All of their stock prices are going bonkers. People that got involved in the Bitcoin are doing incredibly well. And then the poor, they can't afford a Bitcoin, not at $52,000 per coin. That isn't going to happen. It was once 10 cents a coin. So anyway, if you want to pause here and look at this, I think he has a point, just like David H. Stern did. So what I'm arguing is the birth pangs are up there. Those are the seals. The tribulation is 3.5 years, and that the great tribulation is the last 3.5 years, and that we're in the midst of it right now. I'm arguing that we're in the third seal. It opened up in 2012, and we'll see more evidence of it today. We're seeing some signs of the fourth, but not. We won't talk about it much today. And I believe that starvation and suffering is part of our refinement. So get used to it. So this is my overall end times, and it kind of shows that if we're in the third seal right now in 2021, that we're due for the fourth seal at some point in time, and then the fifth seal, martyrdom and things like that. So I'm arguing it's not global warming, it's from God, because the sun is driving this right now, but it's driving a lot of natural disasters. So this is Zero Hedge, and they're talking about all these various climate disasters going across the world and how much damage it's going to be. Now, this is January 11th. This is before the Texas fiasco where, the U.S. government said to Texas, you can't provide energy from other sources. You have to provide it via, solar panels and via wind power. And so bottom line is Texas suffered as a result of a federal policy. And they, listened to them. So this is record cold, loss of 45% of Texas wheat. Well, that's going to affect us in the long run. That's part of the third seal, people. Then here, Argentina traders and millers are discussing options to avoid a ban on wheat exports. Well, they're net exporters. The United States is a net exporter. So if we are starving, others are going to starve even worse. So let's look at what we would see eventually here. Hyperinflation. This is the Weimar of Germany, 1930s hyperinflation, where money was worthless, and you can see the pattern of how it goes and goes and goes. It kind of reminds me of Bitcoin, how it's growing. So this is where we're going right now, hyperinflation, where the dollar will be worthless, and they're all talking about the Great Reset. Well, that's part of that third seal. They're going to reset the currency and go crypto. You know what's going to happen. And so more third seal news. So global food prices at a 6-year high are set to keep on climbing. This is from January 7th of 2021. And so you can just see all of these signs of the third seal coming. Basically, grain sold at about 12 times its normal prices due to the scarcity of grain, measured carefully during the time when olive oil and wine are abundant for the wealthy. So you're seeing the basic food staples are jumping 18% since May. Prices likely climb further. Broader inflation, memories of food price crisis of decades ago. It's bad news for consumers. It is bad news for the poor guy. The rich guys, not a problem at all. So this is from Bloomberg, and they're talking about it. So rice, what's happening to rice? Well, here's the net exporters in the middle, okay? India and Thailand and the United States and Vietnam, and you're seeing that the numbers don't look real good right now, that a lot of people, that rice is being rationed right now. And so if Vietnam is not going to export their rice, people are going to go hungry. There are countries that need to import, and China is one of them. So basically, these are the export countries here, and then you can see, basically what I'm arguing is that rice is going to, the rice prices are going to go through the roof. It's going to hockey stick. Okay, so here's the next one, soy. It's going to hockey stick too. And so the food giants seek ban on soy from deforested Brazil region. Okay, so they're saying we won't accept soy coming from the Amazon, so therefore the prices go through the roof. So the wealthy are saying this. They're saying we can't grow soy in those areas, and so that means that if we have famines or pandemics in other places, who cares? Because the wealthy don't notice that. It's the poor that would only notice that. So rice is an issue, soy is an issue, birds are an issue. We have the bird flu everywhere. Lithuania, France, other places where birds are getting sick. And that's expensive for us. If we need rice, we need wheat, we need soy, we need animal protein, and here's corn. Okay, so what happens with that? Well, corn is going to soar in price too. Okay, and then food got more expensive in 2020. This is it shows the hockey stick basically going on there in 2020. Okay, and then speculation about whether these disruptions of the coronavirus would drive up food prices have been abound, but due to COVID-related economic downturn, supply chain disruptions, and falling out-of-house demand, they started to decrease from the beginning of 2020, reaching a low in May. So it was May was the low, and now it's just hockey sticking. So corn's going to go up too. And this is one of the guys that I follow, the Ice Age farmer. And so he's saying, are you prepared for what's going to happen? John Podesta, he doesn't care about you. He's wealthy. So the wine and the oil doesn't affect him at all. But these basic prices are going to affect us. And the food chain, basically, it's going to break down over time. And it's going to affect your price at the grocery store. And it might affect your job. You never know. So once again, this is the Ice Age farmer, at-home food selling concerning as Food Standards Agency in Britain is going to shut down the at-home concerns. So that's kind of a gray market. It's not a black market, but people are growing things at home. Why have this lawn with green grass? Why not grow some food out in your front yard? Okay, and why not have some chickens in the back? Well, they don't like that because they can't regulate that and they think it might be dangerous. Well, it's that or starvation, or pay, 20 bucks for a cooked chicken that you normally would be able to get for $4.99 at Costco. So it's interesting. So this is a concern right now for people because they want to be able to grow their own food so they don't have to pay these outrageous prices. But the cities and the counties and the states and the nation are saying, no, you can't grow it at home. And so they're going to shut down the at-home businesses. This is from Christian again on the left-hand side, and then my friend on the other side, Brad Harris. So they're going to outlaw gardens. They're going to contaminate the seeds. This is what's going to happen. And then the Spectrum Survival guy, Brad, on the other side, is saying, you just need to kind of follow him to get an idea. But he's saying you're getting it from many different angles. You can't have a garden then, and you're going to have to buy their food, whatever they want to give you. And so it's all breaking down like dominoes. So who else do I follow? I follow Christian and Brad, as I mentioned before. So Ice Age Prepper, and then full, what was the name of his? Full Spectrum Survival. And then Rapture Ready, every morning I read that. Zero Hedge every morning. Steve Quayle. I don't necessarily agree with their determinations, but I do agree with the news that they report. I follow Ben Davidson from Suspicious Observers every morning to see what's going on with the sun. I follow John Holler. He's a wonderful guy. I never thought that I'd agree with him, but he's a great researcher, and he's not dogmatic, which I really appreciate. I follow Mark Biltz, and then I actually have many friends on Facebook, so I get a lot of information. People send me videos, send me stuff, and I get through it eventually, and so I do follow these people the most. And why? Because in this case, this comes from Ben Davidson, and he's saying even CNN is saying that the poles shift. Eventually, they're going to reverse, and you're going to have these extinction level events. Here's 12,000 years ago, Gothenburg. 24,000 years ago, Lake Mungo. 35,000 years ago, Mono Lake. And so all of these different extinction level events somehow animal life survives through, but it happens on cycles, and we're hitting that cycle right now. Okay, and so just be aware that even CNN is saying that there's a climate change going on that reminds us of the end of days, and the magnetic field has almost disappeared. That's our magnetosphere, so it resembles the end of days, and then there could be a reversal coming up. It happens. And what happens then? I mean, how do we survive through that? Well, we have before, and we will again. So Ben Davidson is talking about the magnetic extinction, the world on notice, and then he's saying as of 1859, the Carrington event started kicking it off. So then 2000, the year 2000, we knew that our magnetic field had lost 10%. The poles were starting to shift faster. 2010, even worse. Now by 2015, 2017, it was accelerating. And so he's telling you to watch out because the UV rays are going to be very powerful. And he's got an app that you can go ahead and get and add to your phone. I have it on my phone like all day. It's been going off because the earthquakes are going off. And so if there's a disaster coming your way, you want to know about it before it hits. And he's got many different ways of measuring what's going to happen and where it's going to happen. So I love the fact that he does that. The other thing is, Ben is telling us that as the sun is inactive, that and you can see the active inactive cycles that he has here. What happens is that causes the jet stream to change violently, and so you get what happened to Texas last week. You get these horrible changes, and that's because the sun is not kicking out its normal amount of CMEs and solar energy and other things like that. So the cold times are returning. We might go into a warmer phase for a period of time, then go into a horrible deep freeze. So Ben is doing the research, and others are finally coming along and seeing that it could happen, and we should start to prepare for it. So I have argued for years that 1967 was the first seal. That what happened was Israel conquered the Holy Temple area, and then they gave it back again, and that kicked off the first seal, which is basically the West falling apart. Then the second seal, wars. Well, that's George Bush, senior and junior, kicking off these hornet nests. And I even have a hornet's nest up there of what they kicked off. We didn't need to go into Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan and other places like that. And it's just ridiculous what we have caused by going and creating wars, worldwide wars. And so the third seal, I argue, occurred during 2012. So I was at church. A young man showed up and he said, I have a message for the pastor and the elders. And I worked him over verbally, to share his story with me. And he said, there will be a catastrophic storm this fall after Sukkot, but before the end of October. The sign of this storm will be snow and a broom. After prodding, he also stated the third seal opened this summer. And my second witness was a friend of mine, and he said months later, hey, Joel, what you need to be aware of is that it's 1 Kings 12. You have Rehoboam down in the south and Jeroboam up north. It's a divided kingdom, and the false Sukkot and Hurricane Sandy occurred during the false Sukkot of 2012. So it all made sense. And there was the election of 11/6 of 2012, and that showed that we were divided. We were divided just like Israel, and it was very biblical. Then we also had Arab Spring kicking off during that time. And so you have these wars that were fomented, and it's kind of the aftermath of what the Bushes started for wars. And so 10 years later, it got really heated and ugly. And so what's going to happen then? Well, as you have civilization falling apart, you're going to have historic highs of food, because as the infrastructure breaks down, the prices go up. So this is Zero Hedge again saying that the food index was still down 25% from his historic high. There you go, back in 2011. So you can see that things changed around 2011. You can just see the charts here. And now we're starting to hockey stick in 2021. And here it is again. So this is a chart for Arab Spring. Yep, so you can see everything changes as a result of Arab Spring. So annual inflation in cereals reached 20%, the highest annual rise since mid-2011 when the Arab Spring was in full flow. So it's all related to these things. So this is interesting. So you can see Tunisia, Algeria, Oman, Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Libya, Syria. You can see the food prices tick up, tick up, tick up. Okay, so there you go. So it's all part of the equation. There isn't just one little thing. And then this is the fourth seal, just so I thought I'd share it with you, that mental illness is going to be a serious problem. As you put masks on little kids and you don't let them play, they're going to attempt suicide. And so that's a sign of the fourth seal. So we're moving through from the third seal eventually to the fourth seal. That's 1.944 billion people dying. And you have a man that's going to make it even worse. Bill Gates said the best investment I've ever made was not Microsoft. It's vaccines. Well, we'll call them the jab, okay? And so he's saying he's made $200 billion off the jabs. and he doesn't care about right or wrong. His father was an abortionist, and he cares about having about 500 million people on the planet. Well, we're about almost 800 or 8 billion, and so we would lose 80% of our population. It wouldn't bother him at all. He really thinks that's healthier. And then this is from Michael Snyder. He's a friend of mine, and he's a blogger. And so he says more mysterious diseases are popping up across the world. Pandemics are popping up. That's another seal. That's the fourth seal. As you see more diseases and more death, and possibly the jab could cause, maybe 3 to 6 months from now, you could see more death as a result. So what will you want to wear? You'll want to wear white garments when Yeshua returns. And so it's a wedding. You want to get your garments clean. That means you have to repent and have faith. So seal 1's already occurred in 67. Seal 2, I argue, started in 2001, 2003. Seal 3 started in 2012. Seal 4, we're waiting for. It's coming. Seal 5 is martyrdom. Seal 6 could happen. It's survivable. And that's the end, people. So be blessed. And look for us to open up shortly. Good night.